Good morning and welcome to Sunday worship here at Beverly Hills Presbyterian Church. We gather this morning not because we're particularly good or smart or faithful or needy or commendable. We gather because God is good, and in His goodness He has called us as we are to be with Him. And so let's spend some time together being with Him together this morning. Let me share with you some announcements from the life of the church. First announcement is our Sunday Night Live program. And if you haven't heard of that, it's because I've never called it that until this moment. But this evening, we're going to have our second Sunday Night Live service at 5:30 p.m. The service will be available both in person for those of you who've already registered ahead of time or via live stream through the church's YouTube page. So Lauren and the Chancel Choir is going to lead us musically, while members of the community are going to lead us in prayer. I may say a little word. But Sunday Night Live is an opportunity for us in some ways to return to in-person worship, at least for those of us who are kind of ready to do so. It also gives us a chance to begin to do live worship again in COVID-19. And it's almost like training wheels again. The next Sunday Night Live it's going to be led by Ronnie and the band. It'll be on Sunday, October 25th. So mark your calendars. If you're not coming to this one, make sure you get a space at the next one. Second announcement, next Sunday, our longtime mission partners, Bob and Christy Rice, will be joining us for worship. Bob and Christy serve in South Sudan, and they will be drawing from their experiences in the International School of Reconciliation in Rwanda to lead us in our present sermon series on reconciliation. I almost didn't share this announcement with you because I didn't want you to think, oh, that sounds really interesting. I'd rather that be this week than this week. Next week, show up. It's going to be great. The Rices will be it'll be fascinating. Next, I want to encourage you to sign up for our upcoming classes on emotionally healthy spirituality. The class is a great opportunity to kind of dig deeply into your relationship with Jesus Christ. The class starts on Sunday, October 18th. Now, there's a companion class called Emotionally Healthy Relationships. So if you've already taken the Emotionally Healthy Spirituality with us, that class begins on October 17th, which is a Saturday, and they'll have a Saturday kind of time habit schedule. If you're interested in joining either of these classes, please just send us a note through the e-bulletin, or you can just give the church office a call. Finally, I want to thank you all for the ways that you've been generously giving. It's a blessing to be part of a community, even as we're stretched kind of in through this kind of day and age where we're not allowed in person as much. We're together, and I'm grateful I'm grateful to be part of one another. I'm grateful for your generosity. I ask you, as you're able, please continue to give. You can give one of two ways. There's a link to the website. I think that's on the screen right now. Or you can mail a check directly to the church. But again, thank you for your giving. It is a blessing to be part of a church. Now with that, will you please join me as we go before the Lord in prayer? Jesus, you know our needs. You know the things that are weighing on us. You know the things that make us anxious. You know the circumstances that keep us up at night. And so we begin this time of prayer by entrusting these into your hands. Lord, meet us here. Lead us in repentance. We confess the places that we've aligned ourselves economically, relationally, politically, even religiously with other than you. We recognize the ways that we have vested interest in things that you are indifferent to, that we are indifferent to things that break your heart. We recognize this and we confess. We ask that you would align us with your truth, with your heart, with your plan in all things. Reconcile us to you. And give us the boldness to step into your embrace. Then show us the security that is ours in you. Show us the ways that your steadfast love conquers all fear. Your hope overwhelms all despair. Your provision eliminates all scarcity. Your presence fills us completely. Jesus, we need you. We need to be your sons and daughters for ourselves. But we also need to be your sons and daughters for the world in which we live at such a time as this. So make us salt and light. Help us to be peace in the midst of political anxiety, health worries, economic unrest, racial pain. Reconcile us that we may be your peace. And Jesus, now we turn to pray as you taught your disciples to pray, saying in one voice, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
Embrace
Will you please pray with me? All right, Jesus, we pause here. We pause here in the midst of all kinds of distractions, all kinds of worries, all kinds of things going on in our lives. And Lord, the best we can right now, we lay those things at your feet. We ask that you would be sovereign in this time. We ask that you would meet us in our pain, meet us in our joys, meet us in who we are, and lead us ever closer to you. I ask it in Jesus' precious name. Amen. Now, too often, we Jesus people, we find ourselves tempted to believe that we bear the name of Jesus because we're different. We're tempted to believe that something about us made Jesus see the wisdom in leaving the 99 to come and find us. Maybe it's just that our mistakes aren't as bad as other people's mistakes. Or maybe it's that we kind of understand things better than other people, that we have the right way of thinking in our lives. Or maybe God just sees potential in us that he doesn't see in everyone else. I mean, and I don't mean to sound prideful here, but some of us even went to seminary school and learned Hebrew and Greek, and we all know how important Hebrew and Greek is to God. Don't get me wrong, we never really say these things out loud, but usually we don't have to. Usually they come through in the ways that we believe, the ways that we behave, and maybe most particularly in the ways that we think and treat other people not like us. Let me read to you a Jesus story from the Gospel of Luke. This is from Luke chapter 5, verses 29 through 30. It says, "Then Levi gave a great banquet for him in his house. And there was a large crowd of tax collectors and others sitting at the table with him. Then Pharisees and the scribes were complaining to his disciples, saying, 'Why do you eat and drink with tax collectors and sinners?'" Now, Levi is better known to us as Matthew. Matthew is going to end up becoming a disciple. In fact, he's the guy who writes the Gospel of Matthew. But at this point, Matthew is Levi the tax collector. And tax collectors were the people that were known to kind of be as far away from God as anyone could possibly be. Maybe they weren't like the Gentiles who are born far away from God. No, tax collectors, they were born in the family of God, but they chose to be far away from God. So you see, they're the worst. They're kind of doubly to be condemned. And the Pharisees in our passage, they get this. They see that when Jesus goes to this party at Levi's house, the Pharisee, they can't believe it. They know who the tax collectors are. They can't believe that Jesus is spending time at Levi's house. Does he not know that these are not the kind of people that go to church? Does he not know that these are not the kind of people who vote in the right way? Does he not know that these are not the kind of people that Jesus should be having anything to do with? Now, all joking aside about the ways that we're all tempted, I do want you to pay attention to the posture of people in this passage. Now, I think posture is incredibly important. I think what a person's posture is can be the difference between them seeing something or not seeing something. What a person's posture is can be the difference between connecting with someone or not connecting with someone. What a person's posture is can be the difference between finding themselves for or against Jesus. What do I mean by posture? Let me kind of describe it in the terms of this text. So think of the Pharisees first. I imagine them in this story kind of red in the face, kind of all kind of hyper and hyped up. They can't even talk to the tax collectors in this story. They won't even look at the tax collectors. They can't believe Jesus is there, and they kind of want to keep talking to Jesus, but the tax collector's in the way. And so if the tax collector gets in their field of view, they look down on them. They're just so apoplectic. And so they're yelling at the disciples because they want to make sure everyone knows what they really think about what is going on. The disciples' posture, though, is a little different. It's interesting. They're not as closed as the Pharisees. In fact, I imagine if the Pharisees weren't there, the disciples may even actually enter into the party and enjoy themselves. So they're not really open or closed to the tax collectors, mainly because their eyes are following Jesus. They aren't believers yet enough to kind of cross the Pharisee picket line and enter the party with Jesus, but at the same time, they're watching him, and they're watching him being with the tax collectors. You know what? Then there's Jesus. The fascinating thing about Jesus in this text is that he hears the Pharisees. He's able to hear the Pharisees even though he's actually with the tax collectors, which is the thing that makes the Pharisees so mad. But he's actually present with his arms open to both. Let me read to you what Jesus says. This is from Luke chapter 5, verses 31 and 32. Jesus answered, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. I have come to call not the righteous, but sinners to repentance." Did you catch that? Jesus' posture is like an EMT in an emergency situation. He didn't come to save his own skin. He came to see who needs help. He doesn't look around and see Pharisee and tax collector, who looks around and sees people who need him, even people who need him who don't know that they need him, like the Pharisees. You see, Jesus' posture is one of healing. He is the great physician. And as a great physician, he has come for the sick. He has come for the sinner. He has come for the wayward one. He has come to take those and bring them into a place of relationship with God once again. You see, Jesus has what I've taken to calling a posture of reconciliation. You see, this morning I want us to begin to understand why Jesus' posture is so important to us, that we can't really understand our role of reconciliation in this world if we don't understand Jesus' posture. We can't cross the Pharisee picket lines if we don't enjoy the healing until we understand Jesus' posture of reconciliation towards us. So I want us to look at another text. I want us to look at a text in the Apostle Paul's letter to the church in Rome. Now, keep the great physician idea in mind so you can understand why Paul kind of thinks of us as being so sickly and so wounded. But let me read to you from Romans chapter 5. I'm going to read to you verses 6 through 11. The Apostle Paul writes, "For while we were still weak, at the right time, Christ died for the ungodly. Indeed, rarely will anyone die for a righteous person, though perhaps for a good person someone might actually dare to die. But God proves his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Much more surely then, now that we have been justified by his blood, we will be saved through him from the wrath of God. For while we were sinners, we were reconciled to God through the death of his Son. Much more surely, having been reconciled, will we be saved by his life. But more than that, we even boast in God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have now received reconciliation." Okay, so did you catch in that text the words that the Apostle Paul uses for our relationship with God? He says things like, we're weak, we're ungodly, we're sinners, we're enemies of God. It's quite a resume. And here's where we're tempted to kind of look around. Because the thing is, we don't want to look inside. Because if we begin to look inside, we begin to find purchase for words like that. We begin to see where they begin to make sense for us. We can have those kind of trains of thought that we always have. The ways maybe that we didn't go to church, or maybe the times we did go to church, but we were pretty sure we didn't want to be at church. Or maybe we begin to realize our anger or the bitterness that we hold in certain places. Or maybe it's that thing that we did that nobody knows about, or maybe it's that thing that we did to that person that we can't seem to ever put behind us. And so we're tempted to look around. I mean, surely there's got to be some poor sap who's worse off than us that we can kind of focus on. I mean, where's a tax collector when you need one? But the point of this text actually isn't to look around. The point of this text isn't even to look inside. The point of this text is actually to look at Jesus. And when we look at Jesus, there's no hiding. You see, when we bring who we actually are into the light of the Son of God, we kind of end up owning every single ounce of those words, weak and ungodly and sinners and enemies of God. We find ourselves deserving really nothing good. Or maybe, as Paul alludes to in this text, maybe we see how we might deserve the wrath of God. You see, any pretension that that God might have chosen us because of anything we brought to the table is kind of mercifully stripped from us in this text. And that's a good thing, because that's not the place we're supposed to stand. That's not the posture we're supposed to have. That posture, it kind of tops out at the Pharisee level. Now, I want you to also pay attention in this text, though, to the ways that Paul talks about Jesus' actions on our behalf. He says it over and over again. He says, Christ died for us. And almost every time he says Christ died for us, he juxtaposes it with one of those words about our sickness or our weakness. He says, Christ died for the ungodly. He says, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. While we were enemies, we have been reconciled to God by the death of his Son. And let that begin to kind of stretch your understanding of God's relationship with us, how far God goes for us. Paul kind of does it. Paul kind of says, in some ways, he says, every once in a while we can imagine dying for someone. Maybe it's your wife or your husband or your kids or your pastor. But most of you, not your pastor, but to die for somebody. But to die for your enemy, I mean, who does that? I mean, who loves like that? Many years ago when I was a youth pastor, I found myself in a church fight. I don't know if you know what a church fight is. Church fights are that happen when there's a disagreement in the church. And when that happens, there tends to be a sense that the attacks tend to be theological. because everybody puts their best kind of Pharisee on for the fight. And so instead of the other person just being mean, or maybe they just made a mistake, we say things like, well, that is ungodly. I mean, honestly, I don't know if that person's even friends with God anymore. I mean, I don't like to talk about the devil very often, but that tax collector has some serious spiritual baggage. I just remember being in this church fight, and I didn't want to be there anymore. I didn't want to talk to this person anymore. So I told him on the phone, I said, I'm done talking to you. In fact, if you want to talk to a pastor, why don't you call the head of staff? Because I'm signing off. We're not talking anymore. Now, I have to make kind of a parenthetical statement here, because we're in the middle of a sermon series on reconciliation, and what you're going to hear from me a lot are illustrations from my own life of kind of fights and reconciliations that I have had. And so what I don't want you to do is walk away from all these sermon series knowing all of that about me and only that about me. But the truth is, I've been in church work for 20 years. I have the stories. The point of the story I just told you is that I didn't even want to talk to this guy on the phone. I wouldn't have donated blood if he needed blood. I would not have given him my kidney, much less would I ever have considered dying for this guy. And yet that day when I hung up the phone after swearing that I'd never talk to him again, I heard that whisper in my ear. The whisper simply said, I died for that guy. That guy too, Jesus? I mean, come on, he is such a punk. Yeah, Andrew, I really love that guy. Of course you do. Here's the thing about Jesus' posture. He says it in verse 8. It says, but God proves his love in this, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. There's a theologian named Miroslav Volf who wrote a book that I found incredibly helpful. The title of the book is called Exclusion and Embrace. And it's kind of heady, but this basic point is that we as Christians should walk around with our arms wide open. You see, if your arms are closed, then it tells us something. When we close our arms to somebody, we let them know that we're closed off. They're excluded. They're not getting close to us. They're not getting anywhere near us. And which is when things are hostile, which is kind of what people do. Well, except for Jesus. You see in our text, Jesus has open arms, even when we are hostile, even when we are ungodly, even when we are far from him, even when we're not taking his phone calls anymore. It's like he approaches us with open arms. He's willing to bear the pain. He's willing to bear the risk. His posture towards us is one of embrace, not of exclusion. You see, Jesus' posture is one of reconciliation. Do you get it? This is the gospel I need you to hear, no matter what we've done. No matter how often you've rebelled, or how often we've been wrong, or how often we've even cursed his name, Jesus doesn't write us off. Jesus' posture towards us is always that of reconciliation. You see, reconciliation starts with Jesus. Always starts with Jesus. Let me read to you verses 9 and 10 again, because this gets a little more interesting. He says, much more surely than now that we've been justified by his blood, will we be saved through him from the wrath of God. For if while we were enemies, we were reconciled to God through the death of his son, much more surely, having been reconciled, will we be saved by his life. So here in this part, Paul uses two words. He uses the word reconciled and he uses the word justified. And both of these things, reconciliation and justification, are tied to his dying for us on the cross. And when we talk about dying on the cross, or his dying on the cross, we're talking about a historical event that happened. It happened once and for all. It is done. He has done it for us. There's nothing that can undo it in any way, shape, or form. But the two terms are different, because justification is a legal term. In some ways, what it means is that whatever you have done has been forgiven. The penalty has been paid. There's no more fine left for you to pay at all. Justification means that you are free, that we are free. But reconciliation is a little different. Reconciliation isn't about the things that we have done wrong. Reconciliation is about the ways that we're relating to God. And if we have been estranged, if we have been enemies, if we have been far away, this text tells us now we are reconciled. It tells us that there's nothing on Jesus' side of thing that is keeping us from embracing Jesus. His arms are open to us. Jesus' posture is one of reconciliation. But nevertheless, this still asks us a question. The question is, well, if this is true of Jesus, what are we going to do? Will we step into Jesus' embrace? Because the truth is, reconciliation is a posture until both decide to embrace. let me kind of jump backwards in our text. I actually want to read a couple few verses before the text that I've already read to you in Paul's letter to the church in Rome. Let me begin by looking at Romans chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. Paul wrote, "Therefore, since we are justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have obtained access to the grace in which we stand, and we boast in our hope of sharing the glory of God." You see, in this text, Paul is kind of painting a picture of what it means to be in the embrace of Jesus Christ. It isn't the place of kind of arrogance, like I was kind of kidding about in the very beginning of the opening kind of illustration in our text, in the sermon. You see, it's not about thinking about being special or different or particularly worthy of whatever it is that Jesus has given us. It's not a Pharisee's posture at all. Instead, it simply is that we are at peace with God. We are reconciled. We stand based upon the grace that we have fully received in Jesus Christ. And from this place, we actually still boast, but we don't boast about Greek or Hebrew. We boast instead of that our destiny is to share the glory of God. It's a fantastic text. But it's also maybe a little too cute. And I think Paul knows it's a little too cute. Paul knows that his critics and the people who are against him will know that it's a little too cute, and they're going to kind of rake him over the coals for it and say that he doesn't really know what he's talking about. Because how could Paul say that Christians are at peace with God when things aren't really going well for Christians in that time period? You see, Rome was in charge, and the Romans made this kind of habit of persecuting Christians. And there's also disease, and there was famine. Things were tough. I mean, how could Paul say that these Christians are at peace with God when things aren't going well? The truth is, we could probably paint a very similar story. I mean, how can we say that we are at peace with God in the midst of COVID-19, in the midst of all the kind of political and racial and the divisions and the angst and the worry and the anxiety that's all around us? How can we say that we are at peace with God right now? Let me continue reading this text, looking at Romans chapter 5, verses 3 through 5. Paul continues, and he says, "And not only that cute part, but we also boast in our suffering, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not disappoint us because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit that has been given to us." Now, there's maybe a little bit more poetic language here than systematic theology. Nevertheless, you kind of get the idea of where Paul's going with this. Paul's essentially saying, look, here's the thing, our being at peace with God isn't about our circumstances, at least not the way we thought. Being at peace with God doesn't mean peaceful circumstances. What it means is being at peace in the midst of our circumstances. And in fact, what this actually provides for us is a pathway to maturity. You see, the difficulties, they don't steal our peace with God. But what they do is they teach us to endure. And endurance isn't simply kind of putting your head down until the difficulty passes. Endurance is in some ways tapping into our reconciliation with Jesus Christ and who we are. And it gives us a way to put pressure back upon those circumstances that hold them up, that hold us forward, that kind of vent the pressure, that allow us to be sustained no matter the pressure that we're under. And as we endure, we start to be shaped by those experiences, and we develop character. And we all know what character is, or what a person with character is like. I mean, it's not somebody who's a Pharisee. Instead, it's someone who's almost seen it all, someone who's unflappable, someone who, no matter what's going on in front of them, they know back then that Jesus had kind of been there and had upheld them and seen them through. And so they don't look with fear or doubt, or they just kind of look with this sense of like, yeah, Jesus is with me still. It's like he can see the waves, but he's looking past the waves, and he's looking to the hills from whence his help comes. And the thing about people with character, when you're with people with character, if you happen to be a person with character, is there's always hope. And it's not hope that's a vain hope, but it's hope that's in some ways bridged by the presence of the love of God that's poured directly into our lives in the presence of the Holy Spirit. Or if we were to kind of speak with our language of posture, it's hope that comes to us when we learn how to live from the embrace of Jesus Christ. You see, this path of maturity, this path, it allows reconciliation to begin to permeate who we are. This path is maturing in the love of Jesus Christ. It's a path of the embrace of Jesus, but it's also the path of learning the posture of reconciliation ourselves. Reconciliation begins with God. Jesus' posture towards us is one of reconciliation. His arms are open for us. No matter how estranged we may have been, the truth is that Jesus is the great physician. He has come to heal us. No matter how bad the circumstances are, Jesus' arms are there to kind of bear us up, to help mature us into hope in the midst of them. You see, before anything else, reconciliation is about Jesus towards us. But when we're freed from our Pharisee trying, when we learn to kind of stand in the grace that Jesus has given us, when we learn how to live from Jesus' arms, from that place, we begin to see tax collectors differently. We see Jesus among the tax collectors, and we long to join him. Maybe more so, we're called to join them. We're called to join them no matter their sin, no matter their sickness, no matter their beliefs, no matter their accusations. We are called to join Jesus and what Jesus is doing with a posture of reconciliation, with our arms open too. Will you pray with me? All right, Jesus, we bless you and we praise you. We are so thankful that your heart towards us is filled with love. We are thankful that no matter who we are, where we've been, any ways we've stumbled, you have open arms. And Jesus, right now, if there's anybody who's listening to this who doesn't believe that or is having a hard time believing it for themselves, I ask right now that you would be present to them. I ask that you'd fill them with a sense of your presence and your love and your great joy at the idea of an embrace with them. And Jesus, I ask that you would give us courage to step into the reconciliation that you have won for us. Lord, give us courage to be reconciled people. People who can look out at the divisions of the world and know what it is to be at peace with God, and to know what it is to join you as we speak that peace to those around us. We bless you and we praise you. In Christ's holy name, amen.
As I rise, strength of God, go before, lift me up, and as I wake, eyes of God, look upon, be my sight. As I wait, the heart of God, satisfy and sustain. And as I hear the voice of God, lead me on, be my guide, be my guide. Christ be all around me, above and below me, before and behind me, in every eye that sees me. Christ be all around me, yeah. As I go, hand of God, my defense, by my side, as I rest, breath of God, fall upon, bring me peace, bring me peace, above and below me, before and behind me, in every eye that sees me. Christ be all around me, above and below me, before and behind me, in every eye that sees me. Christ be all around me, yeah. Oh, oh, oh. Your life, your death, your blood was shed for every moment, every moment. Your life, your death, your blood was shed for every moment, every moment. Your life, your death, your blood was shed for every moment, every moment. Your life, your death, your blood was shed for every moment, every moment. Above and below me, before and behind me, in every eye that sees me, Christ be all around me. Above and below me, before and behind me, in every eye that sees me, Christ be all around me. Yeah. Oh, 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 Christ be all around me. Yeah. Oh, oh, Christ be all around me. Yeah.
Go in peace. Go in peace knowing how much you mean to Jesus Christ, how far he has gone in order to reconcile you to himself. No matter how far you may believe you have gone away, he is right here with his arms wide open. Step towards him and then walk back outside and know that you are at peace with the living God, and walk in that peace. Say that in Jesus' name.